I put the camera on backwards.
Oh, cute.
Hi.
Welcome to the third and final video of the Everything You Need to Know About Tea series. Today we're finishing up with the 5 different types of tea that I haven't talked about. I know the first 2 were just about black tea / green tea. Today we're getting wild and we're talking about 5 different types all at one time. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about white tea first. So white tea is different from green tea because it's harvested before the tea leaves actually have time to sprout, and they still have little tiny white hairs on them, which is why it's called white tea, which I think is funny and also really weird to think about that plants grow hair. I don't know why I don't like it, but I can tell you that it's weird. Like green tea, white tea doesn't have time to oxidize. It is picked and then immediately withered and dried. The processing is literally just those 3 steps. You pick the buds, you wither them, and then you dry them, and you package it up and it's ready to go. White tea can be, chopped up and made into fast-produced tea. The white tea that I was drinking in the very first video is a fast-produced tea. It's very delicious. You should try it out. But by the way, all of the teas that I am drinking, if I don't mention them in the video, they are always going to be listed in the description below. So if you're ever curious about what I'm drinking, make sure to check the description. Also linked there are social medias, all that good stuff. If you don't want to check, I'm not going to be mad, don't worry. This time we are drinking a hibiscus tea. We're going to get into what hibiscus tea is later because technically it's not tea. Shocking, I know. It's still tea. We'll get into why it's not in a few minutes. It's an herbal tea. It's delicious. It'll be in the description, so make sure to check that out. Anyway, so white tea only has 3 steps in the processing. You pick the buds, you immediately wither them, and then you put them out for drying, chop them up after that if necessary to be in fast-produced tea. If not, it's whole leaf and it's ready to go. So there's a few different types of white tea that we're going to talk about. There's silver needle tea, which is really long, skinny tea leaves. It's called silver needle because they have those weird white hairs on them that are still there, and it makes it kind of, a silvery color, and they're dried and they're whole leaf. Then there's white peony tea, which is a little bit different than the other types of tea that I've talked about. This one actually takes the shoot of like a leaf before it's actually bloomed, which is one of the reasons why white tea is white tea. Take the shoot and then you take 2 fully grown tea leaves, not fully grown, but like they sprout. You take 2 sprouted tea leaves, put them together, and then you dry everything together and then put that together, and that's what gives it a different flavor. It's a bit more floral as opposed to a silver needle, which is almost citrusy, I've heard. I have never had a silver needle tea, but I've heard it can actually give kind of an orangey flavor at the bottom, which is kind of whack because there's no orange in white tea. And then there's Darjeeling white tea, which comes from the same place or a similar area in India, like the Darjeeling black tea we talked about. And then I want to tell you about my favorite white tea that I found, which is called monkey-picked white tea. And it's called monkey-picked white tea because there are rumors that hundreds of years ago, Buddhist monks trained monkeys to go into the mountains and pick the white tea. That's wild. Can you imagine having a monkey pick your tea? I just want a pet monkey, I think. Can you imagine how sick that'd be? Actually, all teas are made from the same plant, the Camellia sinensis plant. The other tea we're going to talk about is yellow tea, and yellow tea is a happy medium between green tea and white tea. It's called yellow tea because of the amount of oxidizing it's allowed to do, which is virtually none. A little bit more than white tea, but a little bit less than green tea. And it's becoming more rare. More people are less familiar with yellow tea. I know that I've not personally ever had a yellow tea. Yellow tea is the most common still today in China and Japan, where tea was invented. Let me know what it tastes like because I would love to know. Is it citrusy like a white tea, or is it really grassy like a green tea? I don't know. Anyway, oolong tea. So oolong tea is again made from the same plant as green and black tea. The only reason why it's different is because it's oxidized for different amounts of time and is hand rolled, or it's rolled in a way that changes its flavor. So oolong tea's flavor is actually entirely dependent on the way that it's rolled and how long it's oxidized, which I think is really interesting. So oolong tea is oxidized anywhere from 8% to 80% as opposed to black tea, which is pretty much 100%, and green tea, which is pretty much 0%, depending on the type of tea that you're drinking. So there is quite a process for oolong tea because it's rolled so many times. You know, you gotta pick it and then wither it, cool it, roll it the first time, then you oxidize it, and then you roast it, and then you roll it again, and then you dry it. It's quite a process. Each rolling gives it a little bit of a different flavor. So sometimes oolong tea is rolled for a little bit less time. Sometimes it's rolled for a little bit more time. There can be multiple different rolling steps. All of these processing steps are pretty much the basics of processing. You can add and subtract as many things as you want depending on what kind of tea you're making, why you're making that tea, what kind of flavor you want to have, you know, the whole shtick. You know, I don't make tea, I just drink it. So if you make tea, that's information you need to know. But it's kind of fun. If you ever go to trivia nights and people are like, how do you make tea? Watch this video, dog. You'll know every single type of tea, front to back. Moving on to the weird stuff. Now we're going to talk about fermented tea, which is a little bit scary. Anything that's fermented does have an alcohol content. Alas, you cannot get drunk on tea. I'm very sorry to tell you. It's got like less than 0.8% or something. Like, it's like so minimal. You'd probably die to drink the amount of fermented tea before you could get wasted. It's like, in my opinion, if you're gonna make it alcoholic, like, make it alcoholic. For legal reasons, that's a joke, but don't drink kombucha because it's not alcoholic enough for you. So yeah, one type of fermented tea is kombucha. It's probably the one we're most familiar with. GT Dave, if you're out there, hit me up. Love your kombucha, it's delicious. So it is, again, the same plant as the rest of the other types of tea, but this time it's actually rolled into a ball and then left to sit for like weeks to years. It's like cheese. I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't really have cheese. Although some aged cheeses, actually most aged cheeses, don't have lactose. Didn't know if you knew that, Mr. Man. So like good quality cheeses, if you're lactose intolerant, you can actually eat them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go. So fermented tea uses mushrooms and mold to get that delicious organic flavor. You're gonna like just see her like tail. Hello!
Hey!
Oh, okay, she doesn't like that. This is Lily the cat. She's making an appearance. Say hello, Lily. She's adorable. She's our perfect Halloween cat. Maybe in a future video, I'll let you guys actually meet her and you can see what she's like. She's the perfect angel. Anyway, we're moving on. Except when she bites my toes. Not into that. Anyway. So when you leave fermented tea to sit for a really long time, it actually changes the microbials in tea will actually change and it mellows the taste, which makes me sound like I know what science is. I barely do, but it actually changes the flavor. That's why it's not super acidic, but it is a little bit more like tea. I don't know. It's a little bit, it's more acidic than normal tea, but when those microbials actually change inside the tea, it changes the flavor, which is really interesting because it is, again, the same plant as the other, all the different kinds of tea that we've talked about. The next tea we're going to talk about is actually not tea. Herbal tea is one of the most popular teas in the US and other places. It's not actually tea. I'm so sorry to tell you. It's actually my favorite type of tea. So I'm sorry. You have to cancel the channel. I don't like tea. Just kidding, we're back. It's not actually a real tea because it's not made from the same plant, the Camellia sinensis plant, as the other different types of tea. Herbal tea is made from flowers and bark and leaves and roots and all the other things in the planet that aren't the Camellia sinensis plant besides dirt. It might be a dirt tea, I don't know about it. But in an herbal tea, it's really easy to mix flavors because you're not actually using the tea plant to make into that green or white tea flavor. You use like rinds of fruit or seeds or bark or things like that to make different flavors. So some of the most common types of herbal tea you might know about are like chamomile tea. I say chamomile tea, which is apparently wrong, but it's chamomile, by the way. Like lavender tea. Lavender chamomile tea is one of my favorites. I have it literally, can you see that if I do this?
Yeah.
Okay. I have it literally tattooed on my arm. There's also yerba mate, is not actually tea, it's herbal tea, which is fake tea. There's lemon ginger, which is really good for like stomach aches, which is not tea. There's peppermint tea, which is also really good for stomach aches and to help with your headaches, but it's also not tea. And hibiscus tea, which is what I'm drinking today, and it's not tea, so sorry about that. But sorry to rain on your parade, it's not tea, but it is delicious. And it's one of the most popular kinds of tea that you can find in stores and in tea houses and things like that. So when you walk into that absolutely beautiful aisle in any store and you just see walls and walls and walls of tea, it's not tea. Sorry. It is delicious though. So make sure you grab some really fun ones. If there's any like weird flavors of like herbal teas that you've had that I have not heard about, I would love to hear about them. I'm all for a weird kind of flavored tea because usually they're still pretty good. Thank you guys for watching. This is the final episode of the All You Need to Know About Tea series. We have made it through all different types, all different 7 types of tea. We've got black tea, green tea, white tea, yellow tea, fermented tea, oolong tea, and herbal tea, which is not actually tea, sorry. But I hope you guys liked. If you have any other questions, make sure to leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. Next week we're going to be talking about thrifting because I'm going on vacation. Oh boy. This is coming out for 4th of July, so I put on some fun glasses because happy 4th of July! Make sure you guys are safe this weekend. Don't drink and drive. Make sure you are being properly socially distanced if you're going anywhere. And if you're not going anywhere, good for you. I'm proud. Wear your gloves, wear your masks, and happy sipping.